Come ye into this house of worship. Come in and find peace and rest, inspiration and aspiration, fellowship and love. Come in and find light for your soul. Come in and find light for your darkness, a friend's touch for your loneliness, and music for your soul. Come in and let your heart sing for all the blessings that are yours this day. Amen. Let us worship. As is our custom, if you'd like to light a candle for whatever joy or sorrow, or just to bring more light into the world, please do so while we sit in stillness, listening to the prelude.
Dona nobis pacem, pacem. Dona nobis 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 pacem, pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Dona nobis pacem, pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Dona nobis pacem, pacem. Dona nobis 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 pacem.
Melanie Davis brings us our chalice lighting this morning, a spark of hope. If ever there was a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. Join me together as we remind ourselves of the affirmation that is a corner of our free faith. Please stand and embody your spirit. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another.
You may be seated. Today is our 10th and final Peace Sunday, completing our look at the great peacemakers' true stories from around the world. Our focus this Sunday will continue to be on leaders caring for the planet. Nader Khalili, an architect dedicated to sustainable and inexpensive building materials, and Wangari Maathai, Nobel Peace winner dedicated to restoring the earth through planting trees. Much of the dialogue about the leaders is taken directly from the book. From humble beginnings to high-rise expert, Iranian-American architect Nader Khalili left a successful career as one of the world's foremost designers of urban skyscrapers and embarked on a quest to find innovative ways to fulfill one of humanity's most basic needs: durable and affordable housing. Equal parts philosopher and architect, Khalili lived his life inspired by the wisdom of the mystic poem Rumi as he created environmentally friendly buildings from the most basic of materials, earth. In 1936, Nader Khalili was born in Tehran, Iran, into a large Muslim family living in a simple earthen dwelling. Khalili later pondered, quote, "Maybe the reason that there is so much earth in my vision is because adobe was the first thing I saw when I opened my eyes," unquote. At age 13, Khalili had a glimpse of his future career when he helped construct a new home for his family. Also interested in writing, by age 20, he had written several short stories and 2 short novels. While Khalili enjoyed writing, he soon discovered another outlet for his creativity, the field of architecture. Moving to Istanbul, Turkey, to study architecture, Khalili met an American woman named Marla. The two soon married and in 1972 had a son they named Dastan. After Khalili received his license as an architect in California, he started designing skyscrapers in Tehran and Los Angeles and became one of the world's top high-rise experts. Khalili recalled, quote, "I used to breathe, eat, and sleep high-rises," unquote. He often appeared on Iranian television, and his face became familiar to millions of people throughout the country. Then one day, Khalili had an experience that changed his life. In a Tehran park, he watched 4-year-old Dastan running foot races with other children. Race after race, Dastan, the youngest in the group, always finished last. The frustrated boy said to his father, quote, "I want to race alone," unquote. Hearing this, Khalili drew a line on the ground and encouraged his son to run by himself. For the rest of the day, Dastan ran many races by himself, each time finishing with a smile on his face and a collection of natural treasures, such as colorful autumn leaves, in his hand. Watching his son joyfully racing alone and always coming in first, Khalili reflected on his own life. Quote, "I was in competition for projects and contracts, but I felt I was in a rat race. I never really helped people," unquote. He vowed, quote, "I would race to my own potential rather than trying to beat someone else. There is an endless reserve of strength in every human to reach his goal, if only this strength is spent in achieving rather than racing and competing," unquote. Boldly, Khalili closed his architecture office, bought a motorcycle, and rode through the Iranian desert for 5 years. The Odyssey drew him closer to nature and to the words of the 13th century Persian poet Rumi, who said, quote, "Earth turns to gold in the hands of the wise," unquote. During his journey, Khalili saw that the adobe houses in many villages were continually eroding from rain and crumbling from earthquakes. Noticing that village kilns, having been fired repeatedly over many decades, stood unscathed, an idea flashed in his mind. why not fire the adobe houses, fusing them into durable ceramic? With villages, ceramicists, and students, Khalili successfully fired several houses and a 10-classroom school. The work not only restored villagers' buildings, but also their self-sufficiency and respect for the indigenous architecture. Khalili called this firing process giltafton, a combination of the Persian words for firing, baking, and weaving clay. By 1979, Iran was in the midst of a tumultuous Islamic revolution. Although many architects fled during the revolution, Khalili remained, insisting, quote, "I don't want to be part of the left or the right. I desperately want just to be an architect," unquote. Eventually, the situation became too dangerous, and reluctantly, Khalili had to leave his homeland. He later said, quote, "It is not a final success or limelight of fame that I am looking for, but a chance to work in peace," unquote. Moving to the United States with his second wife, Shiva, Khalili began teaching at the Southern California Institute of Architecture, and his daughter, Shifta, was born. In his teaching, he asserted that to create decent housing, quote, "you don't need to butcher the trees, destroy the earth, or manufacture the building materials," unquote. The giltafton process, which he had developed, literally meaning clay firing, aims to renew traditional methods of kiln firing and at the same time encourages the use of readily available traditional earth architecture as inexpensive, comfortable, and durable. It improves the structural weakness of indigenous architecture to enhance its resistance to climatic and seismographic conditions. Before he knew it, giltafton was being considered as a technique for building on the moon, and he was invited to present his method to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Khalili enthusiastically accepted the invitation. He believed that if giltafton process was used in high-tech projects in the West, then decision makers in third world countries would be more likely to use it as well. Plus, he saw this process as a way, quote, "to leave the moon free from blinding shiny faces of steel and titanium and to walk on it with gentle and kind steps," unquote. After his presentation to NASA, the audience responded in a way that is most unusual at a Stoic scientific assembly. They actually cheered. Shortly thereafter, though, two unexpected events shook Khalili's life. He suffered a heart attack and learned that one of his closest friends and students had died in a car crash. Grappling with these events, Khalili discovered two important insights: that without people, architecture was meaningless to him, and that although we cannot prove the meaning of life, we can make our own lives meaningful. Once recovered, Khalili returned to his work with renewed vigor. He presented giltafton to Los Alamos National Laboratory and the United Nations. Khalili explained, quote, "Today, there are 1.2 billion people," that's the number the UN gave, "in this world who have no shelter, or they live in shanty towns, or really below poverty. And there is no way any industry, any money, can buy houses for these people. There is not enough forest, there is not enough cement, and there is not enough steel. It doesn't exist. There is no solution but what is under our feet." Khalili's pioneering approach brought him a certificate of special recognition from the UN and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Commissioned by the UN, he returned to Iran to show high-level officials the houses and the school that he had fired years earlier. To his delight, the structures were still being used and were in good condition. Encouraged by this result, Khalili founded the California Institute of Earth Art and Architecture, Cal-Earth Giltafton Foundation, in California's earthquake-prone Mojave Desert. He did this to show that earthen buildings can withstand the harsh desert climate and California's stringent building codes. In addition, he planned to build the first sustainable community in the United States. At Cal-Earth, along with Ileana, his partner and third wife, Khalili developed super adobe, a system of building with earth-filled sandbags that are coiled into domed or rectangular shapes, held together by barbed wire and covered with plaster. Khalili explains, quote, super adobe is an even simpler way than Giltafton, offers the possibility of safe and affordable shelter for millions in places where no clay or fuel to fire the structure can be found. This construction method allows us to use elements of war, sandbags, and barbed wire, and transform them into elements of peace. This won him the Aga Khan Award for Architecture in 2004. A super adobe structure can be built by nearly anyone who can lift a coffee can of earth approximately 5 pounds. And the cost of small super adobe home is dirt cheap. Beyond its affordability, super adobe is far more durable than wood, which rots, burns, and gets eaten by termites. Plus, it is far more weather resistant, giving it the potential to save lives that might otherwise be claimed by tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, etc. Despite these benefits, California building officials initially scoffed at this unusual building approach. With characteristic tenacity, and despite a second heart attack in 1994, Khalili and his colleagues worked for 6 long years to meet the local and state requirements, building prototypes at Cal-Earth and overseeing UN-related prototypes in the Persian Gulf region. Finally, super adobe passed seismic tests, during which the testing equipment broke, but the buildings did not, and was approved by local building officials. Energized by clearing this hurdle, Khalili adapted super adobe for not only poor villagers and disaster victims, but also for suburban Westerners. Khalili stated, quote, if you don't want to pay 30 years mortgage, you can spend 6 months, even if you spend a year, to build your house, you are free for another 29 years. Super adobe is patented, but compassionate. Khalili offers it free for the poor and for disaster-stricken people, such as those affected by the 2004 tsunami in southern Asia, the devastating earthquakes in Iran and Pakistan, and the conflict in Sudan. Instruction is offered through hands-on workshops, videos, distance learning programs, via the internet, and on-site supervision. The future was bright for Khalili and the planet as he continued teaching earth architecture to people from all walks of life, builders, engineers, architects, and individuals, including children. Khalili rejoiced in these developments, recalling, quote, the mission of my life for the last 30 years has been to provide shelter for people who cannot afford it, unquote. Khalili's mission was being accomplished through his creative solutions for durable, affordable, and environmentally friendly shelter. Thus, Nader Khalili built the foundation for the future of sustainable communities. Khalili passed away at the age of 72 in March of 2008. He leaves behind him a vision and quest which his son and daughter are now working to carry forward. We will now see a video of the super adobe method, followed by a few more famous quotes.
Remember the nursery rhyme, The Three Little Pigs? These piggies each built homes, one of straw, one of sticks, and one of bricks. Long story short, this big bad wolf did some huffing and puffing, and before you knew it, the flimsy homes made from only natural materials were history. Of course, if that were today, the wolf would totally make a living as a construction and possibly a bacon recipe influencer on the gram. Now, beautiful homes with natural materials are sturdier than ever, with the design giving a rebirth to homes made of earth. Here's Allie Ward to explain.
Elaborate or modest, all of these homes are made with the same basic building blocks. They're called super adobe, and they're super dope. This is Shifta Khalili, and she and her brother Dastan now carry on a dream built by their late father, Nader Khalili. He set out to do research on and train people in earth architecture.
Super adobe is a building technology invented by my father that is a very basic principle of using sandbags and barbed wire, along with the principles of the arch, to build dome and vault structures.
These homes can be built anywhere on Earth, safely and inexpensively, and they can be updated with modern kitchens and other amenities if desired. I visited Shifta at Cal Earth Institute, located in Hesperia, California, to spend some time in a real-life wonderland.
I love that there's so many like sitting and leaning places.
Fun, you know.
It's like a playground.
These structures are, by design, earthquake-resistant, tornado-proof, hurricane-proof, and can withstand all kinds of extreme weather situations.
What characteristics are really notable with this type of building?
These are handmade a lot of times. We don't use a lot of machinery because we want it to be accessible to people that don't have that type of equipment wherever they are. It's sort of a tangible poetry, my father would call it.
We all came here, a bunch of dreamers, trying to carry out this big dream. How to provide shelter for the homeless, the disaster, refugees, how to help them to build.
He was a humanitarian and an architect. He was really interested in finding solutions for building for people throughout the world who didn't have access to unlimited money and materials.
To that end, he found a way to create super strong sandbag structures.
Between every single row of super adobe of the sandbag is a course of barbed wire. And that tension element, that's what keeps each of the bags connected to each other and the whole building connected to itself. So it will move as a unit. That's what sort of makes it so seismically safe.
And so how is that dome structure made?
In order for you to achieve the dome geometry, at every layer, you have to come in slightly. We call it corbelling.
Never gonna look at a stack of onion rings the same.
It's corbelling.
That's right.
Cal Earth begs you to explore, like a playground,
This is fun.
Super adorable.
and is extra enriching because it brings a new dimension to learning.
Highly climbable.
As we prepare ourselves for meditation, let us hear these words by Peter Morales in Experience Connection. What does deep spirituality feel like to you? Spirituality is impossible to define and difficult to describe. For me, it feels like connection. Connection to myself, to others around me, to the earth and all of creation. Connection to myself feels like deep peace, awareness, calm, authenticity. Connection to others feels like compassion, community, acceptance, and enduring love. Spirituality is not an idea, it is an experience. When I experience connection, dividing lines disappear. Inner conflict gives way to integrity. The line that separates my individuality from others fades. We become one. I find connections with my deepest self in times of solitary practice and reflection. I find connection with others in community, often in worship. All the great spiritual traditions teach this. Today, the connection with creation, with the earth and the cosmos, may be most difficult. We live in an artificial, controlled environment that separates us from the natural world. More than humans in any other time, we live lives separated from the natural world, the world from which we emerged and that sustains our lives. We so very much need to experience our world. We need to let go of controlling our world and allow ourselves to become one with it. We find ourselves when we lose ourselves. May we connect, really connect. When we do, it changes everything.
As strong and stately as the trees she plants, Kenya's Dr. Wangari Maathai is the first environmentalist and the first African woman to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Following her dream of a better world, Maathai has led her Greenbelt movement to plant more than 30 million trees and provide income for more than 8,000 households, despite being imprisoned and beaten for defending nature and human rights. Maathai courageously continued to plant seeds of peace. In the shadow of majestic Mount Kenya, Wangari Maathai was born in 1940 to peasant farmers in Nari, Kenya. Alongside her mother, Maathai spent the early part of her childhood doing chores traditionally done by women in Kenya, working the fields, gathering firewood, fetching water, and so on. Such tasks might have occupied the rest of Maathai's life had her brother not suggested that she attend school, a very uncommon activity for rural Kenyan girls at that time. Excelling in school, she received a scholarship to study in the U.S. at Mount St. Scholastica College in Kansas. After earning bachelor's and master's degrees in biological sciences, Maathai continued her studies in Germany and at the University of Nairobi in Kenya. There in 1971, she earned a PhD in anatomy, making her the first woman in Central and East Africa to earn a doctoral degree. In little time, she became the University of Nairobi's first female department chair, and in the early 1970s was elected as chairperson of the Environmental Liaison Center. She recalled, quote, "My background as a biological scientist and daughter of a peasant farmer provided the seed for growth and long-term commitment to the environment," unquote. After marrying businessman Wangari Maathai, with whom she would have 3 children, Maathai helped her husband campaign for his election to Parliament. During this campaign, she learned that the top concerns of villagers was lack of employment. After her husband was elected, she decided to address this concern and work to provide jobs for his constituents. To do this, and also improve Kenya's environment, Maathai launched a tree planting program that set up its first nursery in her family's backyard. However, her husband thought that the nursery was unsightly and doubted that the program would ever succeed. Over time, their relationship deteriorated, and he divorced her on the grounds that she was too educated, too strong, too stubborn, and too hard to control. Yes. Undeterred, Maathai forged ahead, inspired by the trees around her. She said, quote, "The tree becomes a symbol of hope. The tree is living. It is stately. It is beautiful. It inspires. It grows upward. It brings back life. So even by starting with a simple step of just digging a hole and planting a tree, it's like you are planting hope in your life and for your descendants. And you're saying to yourself, I can always start again," unquote. Her tree planting program found a new home with the National Council of Women of Kenya, and during its first ceremony, 7 trees were planted, each in honor of an outstanding Kenyan. As the trees grew, so did the program. And in 1977, it was officially founded as the Green Belt Movement. The movement got its name from a tree planting strategy for public land, in which seedlings were planted in rows of at least 1,000 to form green belts that provided shade and windbreak, facilitated soil conservation, improved the beauty of the landscape, and created habitat for wildlife. These green belts also helped women who in Kenya are usually the first to feel the strain of deforestation. Because women do most of the farming, they experience firsthand how deforestation causes soil erosion and leads to lower crop yields. Furthermore, as the forests recede from the villages, women must walk farther to collect firewood for cooking. When firewood becomes scarce, women are often forced to change their family's diet, which sometimes results in malnutrition. To reduce the country's problems of soil erosion and malnutrition, the Greenbelt movement initially involved women and later men as well, planting both indigenous and fruit trees. To compensate them for their efforts, the participants were paid approximately 10 cents US for each tree they planted that survived. They were allowed to cut some mature trees for firewood, charcoal, building material, etc. But every tree they cut, they were encouraged to plant 2 more. Explaining the movement's purpose, Maathai said, quote, "It was our intention to plant 15 million trees throughout the country, since that was Kenya's population at the time, and our motto was, 1 person, 1 tree." Hearing this plan, forestry professionals burst into laughter, believing that uneducated, largely illiterate women could never accomplish such an ambitious goal. However, Maathai and her foresters without diplomas had the last laugh, not only achieving their goal, but surpassing it and expanding the movement to neighboring countries. In addition to helping people restore rural environments, Maathai also took action to protect urban open space. For example, in 1989, she launched a campaign to save Uhuru Park, Nairobi's only remaining park, when dictatorial President Daniel Moi announced his plan to build a 62-story skyscraper flanked by a 4-story statue of himself in the park. This project would have severely damaged the park and plunged Kenya further into debt because Moi planned to borrow the building funds. When Maathai and her supporters gathered in the park and protested this project, they were harassed, beaten, and jailed. Additionally, Maathai was called a barrage of insulting names and threatened with mutilation. Her response was, quote, "Fortunately, my skin is thick like an elephant's. The more they abused and ridiculed me, the more they hardened me," unquote. Ultimately, due to the protest, the lenders withdrew the funds for the project and the park was spared. In 1992, Maathai returned to Uhuru Park and demonstrated with mothers whose sons were imprisoned for seeking more democratic rights for Kenyans. Declaring the park Freedom Corner, Maathai stayed there with the mothers for 4 days. On the 5th day, armed security personnel moved in, beating Maathai and many of the other protesters so badly that they had to be hospitalized. How did Maathai manage to keep going? She explains, quote, "The clarity of what you ought to do gives you the courage, removes the fear," unquote. 1 year later, Maathai rejoiced with the mothers when their sons were finally released from prison. Following the demise of Moi regime, Maathai found herself in a very different role. In 2002, she was elected by 98% of the vote to represent her home region in Parliament, and was appointed as the Assistant Minister for Environment and Natural Resources. Initially, she was not very interested in getting into Parliament, but soon realized that if she was going to achieve real and lasting change for Kenya, she could be more effective from within the government. Ironically, during her inauguration, she recognized her police escorts. They were her former jailers. In her new role, while traveling to visit her constituents, Maathai received word that she had won the 2004 Nobel Peace Prize. Her reaction, quote, "I could hardly believe it. My heart filled with emotion, bringing tears to my eyes as I faced that mountain that had so inspired me over the years. I am still pinching myself and telling myself that this is not a dream. To celebrate, unquote, to celebrate the wonderful news, she planted a tree and encouraged all friends of nature to do the same. In awarding the prize to Maathai, Professor Ole Mios, chairman of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, said, quote, "The Norwegian Nobel Committee has for a long time maintained that there are many different paths to peace. Environmental protection has yet become another path to peace," unquote. With her commanding presence and radiant smile, Maathai accepted the honor humbly, stating, quote, "Although this prize comes to me, it acknowledges the work of countless individuals and groups across the globe. They work quietly, often without recognition, to protect the environment, promote democracy, and defend human rights, and ensure equality between women and men. By so doing, they plant seeds of peace," unquote. Elsewhere, Maathai said, quote, "Some people have asked what the relationship is between peace and environment. And to them I say that many wars are fought over resources, which are becoming increasingly scarce across the earth. If we did a better job of managing our resources sustainably, conflicts over them would be reduced. So protecting the global environment is directly related to securing peace." From its tenuous start in her own backyard, Maathai's work has grown solid roots and sturdy branches, extending throughout the world. Her Greenbelt movement has established more than 6,000 tree nurseries and has planted more than 30 million trees. In addition, it has provided employment for more than 80,000 people and carries out its mission in more than 30 African countries, the US, and Haiti. Through the movement's success, Maathai realized her lifelong dream. She shared, quote, "All my life, I have been trying to show how the earth is central to our lives. So my dream is for us to return to the earth, her cloak of green vegetation, to give her back what she once had." From Kenya to Kansas and many places in between, Dr. Wangari Maathai cultivated environmental sustainability and improved people's quality of life. In doing so, she made the world a better place by planting seeds of peace. Wangari Maathai died on September 25th, 2011, of complications arising from ovarian cancer while receiving treatment at Nairobi Hospital. Her remains were cremated and buried at the Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies in Nairobi. We will now hear a song about Wangari Maathai, followed by a few more famous quotes.
"30 years ago, in the country of Kenya, they were cutting down trees till very few remained. The topsoil disappeared, the land became a desert. Life was hard to sustain. The women of the villages would go in search of firewood. Branches were scarce in this ocean of sand. One woman, Wangari, saw this taking place. She said, 'We must take care of our land.' So she planted a tree and planted another, in hopes she might see a little change begin. She also saw before her a giant undertaking, So she organized her friends. They were part of the movement, recovering their land, bringing back the roots of Kenya from the sand. They were moving to make their homeland green, women planting trees. With a bag of seeds, she showed her neighbors about planting more trees, an act for which she paid them a small sum, a giant leap. Soon Wangari organized the women of the Kenyan nation. They were part of the movement, recovering their land, bringing back the roots of Kenya from the sand. They were moving to make their homeland green, women planting trees. And something else was happening, empowerment and strength. This was threatening to the men who made the rules. Wangari and her women friends were making real changes, so the policemen came and broke their tools. But they never broke her spirit, even though they tried. They accused her of subversion. They arrested her for crimes she carried on. In spite of them, kept on planting trees, saplings of pride and possibility. They were part of the movement, recovering their land, bringing back the roots of Kenya from the sand. They were moving to make their homeland green, women planting trees. Years later, in the country of Kenya, 30 million new trees under African skies. Wangari is the first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize. She began the movement, recovering her land, bringing back the roots of Kenya from the sand. She was moving to make homeland green, women planting trees. They are part of the movement, recovering their land, bringing back the roots of Kenya from the sand. They are moving to make their homeland green, women planting trees, women planting trees.
Jessica Lynn writes our words for giving this morning. I come on Sunday feeling weary, having worn out the snooze button on my alarm clock. I come on Sunday feeling frightened, having seared my eyes reading the latest news. I come on Sunday feeling burdened, having fretted about my workday worries. But I leave Sunday services feeling refreshed, having been renewed by the spirit of love in the community that exists here. I leave Sunday service feeling whole, feeling lifted up by the words of righteous challenge. I leave Sunday service feeling energized, ready to continue our fight for peace and for justice. This haven, this refuge, this place of worship and wonder exists because we make it so, with our contributions, the gifts of our time, our skills, our food, our love, our laughter, and our money. Please join me in giving so that we may contribute to have a place that fortifies and challenges us in these trying and troubled times. Please join me in giving so that we may continue to have a place that fortifies and challenges us in these trying times. Please give generously. The bowl awaits you, or you may donate online. I invite you to stand in body or spirit for the benediction and extinguishing of the chalice. Our benediction today is, "With what benediction shall I leave you?" written by Mark Mosier DeWolf. What benediction shall I leave you? This: in your life, may you know the holy meaning, the mystery that breaks into every moment. May you live at peace with your world and at peace with yourself. And may the love of truth guide you in your everyday. Amen. Please join me in saying the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame,
but not
the light of truth, the warmth of commitment, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace and be peace.